name is Josh Daychief, and I'm the CEO of a company called AdvancedAg. I know the title here says that we're going to talk about biology for soil and aquatic ecosystems, and we will do that. However, what I want to do is share our journey, our business journey with you as a company that's been involved with biologicals and biological products for the last 21 years. So we're actually a family-owned company. My mom started this 21 years ago, and we're actually based out of Raymond, Alberta. There's not a lot of really exciting things coming out of Raymond other than high school sports. So we're kind of the one business in Raymond that's growing and thriving, and we actually bring a lot of people to our small community. We've been working with different species of bacteria for over 20 years, as mentioned. And for as long as I can remember, even as a 12-year-old, I was always stamping pamphlets, or I was part of a research project as probably free child labor or something like that. But I was always involved in the business, my sister and I. So this photo here, don't expect you to be able to read any of it, but you can kind of see the dates on there. And the reason I threw it up there is because you can kind of see 1974, the date there. That's when some research got started from a laboratory perspective on single-strain organisms. And, you know, really the first 10 years in business, there wasn't a lot of milestones. There was a lot of research. But you can kind of see after 2013, 15, 16, 17, there's a lot of dates more recently on there, big milestones from our company. But it's been a journey, I'll tell you that much. So this is where it all started for us. We were working with a blend of bacteria that could be used to cycle nutrients in a body of water and naturally cycle these nutrients to improve algae and sludge conditions. This concept worked extremely well in municipalities in the early stages of our business, but we were kind of limited to smaller bodies of water. Now, of course, we see these everywhere. In fact, it's the developers have to put these storm ponds in, but what happens is a lot of times in these municipalities, you have some of the more expensive homes around these bodies of water, and those properties at times are sold as lakefront properties. When in reality, you know, these storm ponds have a function that's to collect nutrients, to collect waste in a rain event. So that picture on the left there, I mean, it doesn't take long for a pond to look like that. This is with the city of Calgary. So we had some success on smaller bodies of water, but my mom, Dr. Phyllis Daychief, she's a dreamer, if anyone knows her, visionary. She had bigger plans. So her connections at the Lethbridge College got her in touch with a gentleman by the name of Cal Koskowich, who's the IRAP rep here for Southern Alberta. And he partnered us with the National Research Council. And there was some pretty cool stuff even at the college as well with the Aquaculture Center of Excellence. And they had some funding to do some research. So a lot of our research, you can see a schematic here of a bioreactor, really was focused around this premise. You know, growing bacteria is actually quite simple. You need dechlorinated water. They like, 27 degrees Celsius. Nutrients are food for the bacteria and bugs, and you'll have exponential growth. That's the easy part. Everyone knows how to bubble up some stuff and grow bacteria. The issue with blending multiple species of bacteria, however, is depicted in this graphic here. Just like any living species on Earth, different bacteria species want to outcompete each other for food, for nutrients. So anytime you try mixing 5, 6 different species of bacteria with the same food source, what you get is 1 or 2 species kind of dominates the mix. As you can see here that after 5 hours, for example, bacteria A has duplicated much faster than bacteria B. In fact, way faster. And a lot of times what happens is bacteria A are the lazy ones. The bacteria that have functions, that have a purpose, they use more energy, so they grow much, much slower. This is why brewing up general numbers of bugs doesn't always make sense. There's compost derivatives. If you just add organic nutrients, bubble things up. A lot of times you don't really necessarily have the good guys in that blend. So this is really where a lot of our focus on the research side of things went. So this here was actually our first eye-opening moment with Henderson Lake in Lethbridge. We were growing bacteria at the aquaculture center and applying weekly to this body of water. And, this wasn't a small storm pond, it was a 62-acre lake. They had 15 years of baseline data, and you can see over 3 years we were able to break down that substrate by 64%. And the cool thing about this was that we only could apply the bacteria at the boat dock. So it was cool to see how these bugs actually went out throughout the entire lake over that 3-year period of time and broke down that sludge and organic matter. The big thing, obviously, for the city with this is that they weren't using chemicals, they didn't have to dredge, but at the end of the day, we saved them millions of dollars. Dredging is extremely expensive, especially now with fuel costs, so for them, that was big. We won some awards after this type of research with the National Research Council. In 2010, we won a Canadian Innovation Leader Award, and in 2018, the Canadian Environmental Technology Advancement Corporation awarded us with an Alumni Achievement Award. And then more recently, 2020, with the Lethbridge Chamber of Commerce Business of the Year Awards, we won an Environmental Stewardship Award for what we did in Lethbridge and around the community with farming and agriculture, as well as an Innovation and Technology Award just recently, just a few weeks ago, we took home that award. So pretty proud of that. So Advanced Ag, obviously ag is in the name. How do we get into agriculture? This is honestly, kind of fell into it accidentally, to be honest with you. So, I'll just go back. Well, it's fine. So although we were having success using biologicals to clean up bodies of water, 6 years ago, we looked at a blend of bacteria that was being used around the world on a variety of high-value crops. The bacteria was stabilized and very expensive to manufacture because of the stabilization process. And these guys were, mostly third world countries, Central America, things like that. They were going around with backpack sprayers, spraying these high value crops, and we were seeing some really good data coming out of those trials. We wanted to take a closer look at this and see if our brewing process and all the research we had done up here in Canada could be implemented to this technology to make it feasible for large-scale agriculture. At the same time, doing some market research, we quickly realized that, what type of reputation biological products, 6-7 years ago had in the ag industry, and it wasn't good. I mean, the concepts were there, the research was there, the university studies were there, but at the end of the day, there wasn't a lot of consistency, and there wasn't a lot of research or data to back up, claims in the field. So this is the product we were working with. It has 2 nitrifiers, the Nitrobacter and Nitrosomonas, 2 bacillus species, and probably our most important one are Rhodopseudomonas palustris. All of these bacteria go through a process that has functions built into them. And as you can see there, some of them fix nitrogen, sequester carbon, and solubilize phosphorus. So those are kind of the key functions that are built into the product. And this was evident, we were seeing it around the globe. Crops like avocados, bananas, pineapples, aloe vera. There was definitely some amazing yield and plant quality increases in many countries, but what does this mean for Canada? How can we take this and bring it up here and apply it to broad acres? That's what we had to figure out. And as we did more market research, it was clear that farmers were interested in this type of technology. And I just pulled up a couple graphics. I think this is why. You could see since 1960, we've used more and more synthetic fertilizer, whether it's phosphorus, nitrogen. We produce more food year after year, which has been great. I mean, this fertilizer is obviously one of the most important innovations in human existence. However, we've noticed that this is just a nitrogen graphic, that the efficiency has decreased significantly. We seem to hit plateaus. When we first started talking to farmers about this product, the common narrative was, yeah, I want to improve my soil biology because we seem to have hit a wall. We seem to have plateaued. We're using more and more fertilizer, but we're not really getting more out of it like we used to. So, I mean, it's easy to see. You do a quick Google search, you can find the market for biologicals, where it's going. You can see it's broken into essentially four different categories: biopesticides, biostimulants, and biofertilizers. And you can see that over the next 5-10 years, there's going to be a massive market for these types of products. And again, like since 1974, really over 30 years, we have seen university studies actually prove these concepts in a laboratory setting. But again, those products have not been able to be commercialized. Number one, they're too expensive, and number two, they're just not feasible. How do you get enough bugs out there to actually work on a broad acre spectrum? So back to the functionality of our bacteria. This is extremely important work that we do to ensure that our products are feasible for large-scale applications. It's also what a lot of the bigger companies are working on. You got the Pivot Bios and things like that are building these functionalities into these bacteria to drive nitrogen into the soil. ACFSR itself has both direct and indirect plant growth promotion functions. The obvious ones are nitrogen fixation, phosphorus solubilization, potassium solubilization. But the ripple effect of these bacteria interacting with fungi and solubilizing nutrients in the soil is substantial, and it's something that we're learning about every day. We see it all the time. So I get this question all the time, how do we know what our bacteria are going to do once they're applied? What our scientists do is they literally train our bacteria. So for example, the graphic you see on the right here is a plate of tricalcium phosphate. And I'll just use phosphorus for example, because 3 of the bacteria that we use actually solubilize phos quite well. We'll take a plate of tricalcium phosphate, that's the white area you see there, and we'll put a number of colonies on the plate. So the colony you actually see there, the dot in the middle of the clear zone, is a Bacillus subtilis. And the clear zone you see around that colony is actually orthophosphate. So we put our bacteria through a number of tests like this to ensure these functionalities are built into the product. So what we essentially do is we have hundreds of these plates. We take the best version of this, the most efficient version of these Bacillus species, and add that into the product. Now this type of work we've been doing for years and years and years. It's actually evolved quite a bit to the point where we've now created artificial soil that contains 0 plant nutrients that are available to plants, and we use different blends of bacteria to solubilize these nutrients and successfully grow plants. Here's another image of exactly that. We have different seedlings growing, different types of plants growing on something that wouldn't have been possible to grow anything on if it wasn't for our function-focused bacteria. The reason why this type of research is really important to us is, yeah, we have these functionalities. We know what the bacteria are going to do. How do we quantify that? If I can get a soil sample and I can look at, hey, how much available nutrients are there in the soil sample and how much is unavailable, how can we quantify, hey, if you apply the bacteria right, what percentage of those nutrients are we going to solubilize? That's why this research is really, really important. We believe we're going to get to that point probably by the end of 2023. One of the coolest, and I don't have a graphic up here for this, but one of the coolest studies we're working on right now is actually with our Rhodopseudomonas species. Like that graphic you saw with the tricalcium phosphate, our Rhodopseudomonas actually has no food source. It's being grown on plates with no nutrient. The only food that it has is atmospheric carbon. So these colonies are growing and growing and growing, only feeding off the carbon that's in the air. So we know we're driving carbon into the soil, and it's important research that we're doing with Olds College as well to prove that and quantify that. Okay, so now we move past some of the science stuff, and it was all great to prove some of these concepts in the laboratory setting. Like I said, it's been going on for 30 years with single strain organisms. In 2016, we brewed our first batch of ACFSR. You can see that that tank in the middle there with some aerators and some external heaters. That thing, believe it or not, is still going. I don't know how. We call it the birdhouse. Built a little thing on top of it to keep it out of the elements. This setup was actually in Schuler, Alberta, just outside of Medicine Hat, about an hour east, and very, very dry. And you and I both know that a lot of times you can't necessarily rely on a farmer for trials. Sometimes you can. We work with a lot of innovative guys who run proper trials, but if you wanted hard data and proper trial work, it had to be done with replicated stuff. But this was more proof of concept. Let's get it on a farm, let's get a label, let's get it done properly. And in 2016, for this particular farmer, it was a good year for trials, especially in that area where it had typically been dry. He got some moisture, a little bit of hail. But the reports back were incredible. You can see the picture on the bottom, the middle bottom there. That's his second cut of alfalfa, and according to him, he had never had a second cut before. So yeah, there was some moisture, but wherever he put the ACFSR, there seemed to be results. We knew we were onto something. But as mentioned, field trials are great. Visual stuff's great. Farmer reports are great, but more data was needed, not only to prove the concept of the product on broad acres, but also for us to understand the product, best ways to apply it, dosage rates, what crops were they respond on better. And so we partnered with Dr. Bill Hammond just outside of Lethbridge. He worked for Monsanto for 20, 30 years and does some really, really good work. So we did some different crops, a rotation of barley, peas, wheat, and canola. And the replicated work with him went on for 3 years. Anyone who's done any type of replicated work, it's very expensive. You put a PhD behind it, it's very expensive stuff, but so important for us. And we learned so much through these trials. Initially, we were recommending guys would go out there 3 different times, a gallon and a half of product, but realistically, you're not going to have a farmer go out there 3 different times, not mix it with anything, go out and spray. So we had to nail down, where's that ROI? And these trials really helped us figure that out. So this was actually year 1. Some of the results we saw just on yield, and that was mostly what we were measuring at first. We found that on field peas and on barley, the response was significant. And you can see there the different yields, putting it in furrow and it's close to seeding time. We had a better response than we did at the 3-leaf stage on a number of different crops, actually. So we knew that, but this was definitely proof of that concept. Another one of the trials we did with Dr. Bill actually in 2021 was we have to know what other products are out there. There's a lot of big companies getting behind some biological technology, and we tested ACF against every single one. Now that's not data that I would post and publish publicly because I feel like I'd go missing one day, but the ACFSR was amazing, and it actually outperformed all of those products significantly on every single trial. So we did more field trials, word of mouth, spread fast. The data that we were acquiring spread fast. And it seemed like everywhere we went, we were noticing the same things. We had guys going out and pulling plants. There's definitely a better root system, healthier crops, and better quality crops. Now that didn't always translate to yield necessarily, but these were things we were noticing. And as we went along, the soil samples, and as the technology with soil sampling developed as well, with A&L and a number of different labs, we were able to quantify the microbial activity in the soil, the beneficial bugs that are in the soil, as well as just the overall soil health. So definitely something that we noticed, on every single farm pretty much in the early stages. We also noticed more resistance to stress, like drought and disease. This was actually a Hutterite colony out by Foremost, Alberta, and little to no rain whatsoever, but you could see just the crop and how it responded. And really, this just goes back to a stronger root system, a deeper, stronger root system. We also noticed at times that the treated crop was ahead of the control crop. This wheat field, This was Vegreville area, I believe, and the crop on the left was actually a few days ahead of the crop on the right. So this guy's happy, he's brewing. And lastly, being in southern Alberta, Tabor, high value crops, corn, potatoes, we had ICI to Tabor take this on, do a lot of research, and the potato thing just really exploded for us. We noticed, it's very rare you see lines in the field like this, very rare. Of course, I post these pictures of it because it looks great, but we noticed that the uniformity of these crops as well as the storage of the potatoes after was much better. And so, again, it's a small community in southern Alberta, especially with potato farmers. They all talk to each other, so it just really exploded. Doing about 10,000 acres of potatoes in southern Alberta, and now in New Brunswick, about 8,000 acres. So that side of things has really exploded for us. So at this point, we were trying to keep up with demand. We seem to be, go back to 2017, 2018, we seem to be the only biological product on the market that, number one, disclosed the ingredients, what bugs we were using, what nutrient sources we were using. But we also had, and maybe to a fault at times, a lot of transparency to data. I was getting these raw data reports from Dr. Bill, and I was just sending them off to everyone. It's like, here's the good, the bad, the ugly. We didn't always have great results on canola, whether that was a seed treat or the brassica family of plant, but we wanted our farmers to understand that, hey, maybe don't do canola this year. We've also, learned more about that as time has gone on, but we also had a CFIA label, which actually was really easy for us to get. The domestic substance list and the approved species of bacteria that we use, we were able to get a label quite easily, whereas a lot of these other biological products that don't have a guaranteed analysis weren't able to get that label. So I think that helped us grow faster compared to some of these other products in the early stages of our business. But the biggest thing too is we didn't want to grow too fast. There was a lot of talk. A lot of people wanted this stuff. And if we were setting up farmers to grow their own bacteria, quality control had to be a focus. I didn't want a guy growing 10,000 gallons of this stuff and they're doing a million other things and they forget about it or whatever. So, working with living organisms definitely isn't easy, especially this product. We have really once it's brewed, really a 7 to 14 day shelf life where we want to get these bugs out. That's when they're at their most effective. It's super easy to make, but again, farmers have a million other things going on. So in 2017, we received some funding from Alberta Innovates to produce our own software. So we actually created a software that will data log, monitor all the brew parameters, and essentially walk you through step by step on how to grow these bacteria. And literally, you could have a 10-year-old, producing this product on farm. Believe it or not, very quickly we became the largest pool heater supplier in Canada. I don't even own a pool, and I hear it from my wife every single summer. But these heaters that we use for the Brutus units work fantastic at keeping the temperature at 27 degrees C, and they have no problem having the bacteria go through it. So if anyone wants a pool, I could probably get you a really good deal on a heater. So over the last 6 years, we've experienced some major growth. We've had a lot of growing pains, I'll admit that. But we started with our little brew facility in Raymond, Alberta, producing roughly 100 gallons of bacteria, plant growth promoting bacteria. To this year, in 2023, we expect around 45 locations brewing our bacteria, producing close to 1 million gallons just in Canada. Now, the exciting part for us is we've made some partnerships and some acquisitions to expand this internationally. We're setting up a few brew units in the US. We're looking at Australia. The permits have been fulfilled for Australia, and South Africa, Norway, and India, as well as Mexico and Spain are looking at this type of technology too. So there's a lot of hoops we have to jump through, but it's things that are coming, and we've made some partnerships to ensure that we do a pretty good job of it, or as best as we can. So product development, I mean, we've had this one product, ACFSR, this blend. It's worked fantastic on essentially everything. So this coming year, we actually will have 4 products with a CFIA-approved label. ACFSR, of course, will be used for broadacre crops, high volumes. The Brutus unit will be used for that. We've branched off a version of this for the fruit and vegetable industry. We were just down in the Okanagan this summer, and these guys are applying this product every 28 days to their vineyards, to fruits, tomatoes, vegetables, and it is working unbelievably on plant health and actually disease as well. So it's really exploded. We've on that end of things in BC as well as out east. The Grower magazine's actually doing an article on it in January, but we've created a product for that. ACF SRP is a new one, and it's actually a spin-off of some research that we've done. I'll get into that in a couple slides here, but essentially it'll be used as a foliar application for plant health and more phos uptake during the growing season. And then Alive Soil. So we've branded our stabilized version of our bacteria as Alive, and essentially what that is it's a product that you don't have to worry about that 7 to 14 days to apply it. You'll actually have a year to 2 years to apply, which is going to be great. You know, it's obviously much more expensive to produce, but it's going to be great for greenhouses. The cannabis industry has really exploded for us as of late, but there's some logistic issues, especially in those controlled environments when you have to apply a batch every 7 days. So this, I'm hoping, will bridge that gap. So new developments, just a few things, like really the last 2 years, there's been a lot going on. If we didn't think we were busy before these last 2 years, we sure are now. Around the same time we started researching ACFSR, we were looking at a biopesticide product, a bacteria blend that would physically break down the cell wall of a harmful fungal infection, and without the use of harmful fungicides. And this was something that we did some research on globally in the Dominican Republic on bananas. So I don't know if you know this, but in Florida, they can't grow bananas anymore, essentially. That whole market and that industry has been decimated due to a fungal infection called black sigatoka. It literally wiped out all banana production in Florida, so a lot of the bananas are grown in the Dominican Republic. So on this particular third-party research project, we did prove our concept very, very well. In fact, the bacteria was once it's brewed, it was actually more effective than the conventional fungicide. Now, obviously, to get a label, to go through the EPA, those are steps we're going through. It's very expensive to do that as well, but that's where a lot of our research is starting to focus now. 2022, we looked at a research permit to do a field trial in southern Saskatchewan. The goal was to actually do some trials in 2021, but due to drought, we didn't really have a lot of fungal infections or issues that way. So this year was actually a pretty good year for that. We were looking at Infantomyces on chickpeas in southern Saskatchewan. This was actually the Gull Lake area. And what we saw, honestly, just as, again, just a field trial, we're going to do some more plot stuff, but it was incredible. Not only did this bacteria deal with the disease that was present the same way the conventional fungicide would, as you can see from this image, the biomass map, that the plants actually grew much better after the application. And according to the farmer, you know, once he did his fungicide program on the field above, the plants almost seemed stunted for a few days, whereas the application of the biopesticide actually, you know, the plants kept growing. There was some plant growth promotion there as well. So, you know, this is something that we're gonna focus on over the next couple of years, and it's part of what we're doing with that ACFSRP product as well. Again, to do things correctly, to get the right label, and to make those claims, we have to have the right data and the right research to back that up. So, something we're focused on. More research. We love our research. We just completed our second year of plot work in New Brunswick with McCain's. First year was actually a home run. I think we had about a 12% yield increase on the potato plots. So after 3 years, if we can show consistent data on these plots, McCain's will actually recommend this program and this product to all 3,500 growers in North America. So pretty excited about it. Haven't seen the data from this year, but if it comes back, I expect, if it comes back good, I expect the third year to be like that as well. Olds College, they got some funding to work with us on a 2-year study to study the effects of carbon capture on native and tame pasture land. Again, this is really important research for us as well, because we know the functionalities we're building into the bacteria, but to prove it in a field from a college to sign off on it would be a really big deal for us. And then with all this, the vineyard stuff, I'm not kidding, has absolutely exploded in the Okanagan. Like, and they're foliar spraying it, which is not even how the product was developed, but apparently it's really dealing with a lot of the disease down there, as well as just overall fruit quality. So we've partnered with Vineland Research and Innovation in Ontario, and they're attached to Guelph University, a number of the universities over there. And I've seen a snapshot of the data. I don't have the report yet, but it's looking really, really good. So another random spin-off from this product was on turf. We did a study with Manderley Sod in Strathmore, and these fields, when you're standing out there, a controlled and treated field, you couldn't tell a difference. Actually, you're standing there, you can't really see much, but as we got the aerial photos back, after 4 weeks, the growth and just the health of the turf was significant. So this was kind of like, I didn't really realize what the ripple effect of this turf research was going to be, but all of a sudden, I had my kids in the back bottling this stuff for people's lawns. I had a buddy call me, and he's like, hey, I work for Site One Landscape Supply. You're doing all this work on crops. Like, we have like these lawn wars in my neighborhood. Can I get a bottle of this if it's natural and whatever? So I got him a bottle, and he posted pictures to just social media, and all of a sudden, everyone in Lethbridge wanted this stuff. Just over the last couple of years with brewed product, we were seeing incredible results on dog spots and rapid growth. And again, we know from our barley trials and a lot of our research trials that on grasses, for whatever reason, this product just works probably better than on anything. So just through word of mouth, we couldn't keep up with people's lawns. I was also paying my 10-year-old $1 for every bottle that he was filling. The stuff smells, so he earned it, but he was getting rich off of this, so we had to look at that again, and to me, I was kind of taken back because it was just interesting, to hear what farmers wanted and to hear the direction and the technologies they were looking at for biologicals, but also to hear from a residential standpoint. People wanted something that was more natural, that they could apply to their lawn and have their dogs run out there, safe for their kids, things like that. So here's another picture, but so on a retail side of things, this has come quickly, and my wife's a huge reason we've been able to develop this, but we've developed a product almost identical to ACFSR, but without the smell and without the terrible shelf life. So our Alive Elite product, we brought this in, I don't know, 2 months ago maybe. We got a sprayer attachment. You just hook it up to your hose and go out and spray it. They'll actually be sold in all Site One locations now in Western Canada. And we're hoping that if it does well there, and I expect it will, they have a pretty good marketing budget, so I'm hoping it will do well, that will actually be in all 700 of their locations across North America. What I'm excited about with this particular product and the technology, retail is exciting. Everyone can use the product, but at the end of the day, when you think back to the slides on the storm ponds and how bad they look, using a technology like this where we're utilizing nutrients in the soil to help your lawn grow, those storm ponds technically shouldn't look like that anymore. We shouldn't have as much of those fertilizers washing into these bodies of water. So I think when we talk about the ripple effects of this kind of stuff, that's what really excites me. And the last update I have, again, something not random, but something that's kind of come out of nowhere recently, is aquaculture. We did a research study, and you know, this kind of blows me away. You never know sometimes when you do a research project what's going to happen. Sometimes nothing happens. Sometimes you don't even get good data back, you know, but a lot of times research will come back years and years later. So 9 years ago, we actually did a study at the Aquaculture Center of Excellence, and they're aquaculture specialists, obviously, that's not our world, but apparently one of the biggest issues in RAS aquaculture, which is recirculating aquaculture systems, indoor grown fish, is the off flavor of fish. And they have a way of measuring this. So it's that earthy kind of dirt taste to fish. They have professional taste testers, but they also measure 2 different bacteria in the flesh of the fish, Giasmin and MIB. So 9 years ago, we did a study, and the funding we had was only for 3 months. So we were adding this bacteria to these tanks to see if we can reduce those numbers. The reason why they thought this was such important research is because in the aquaculture industry, the only way to get rid of the off flavor of these fish was literally to take them out of the tanks, put them in fresh, clean water, and take them off of feed for 2 weeks. You can imagine the issues there with weight loss, disease, you know, there's all these different kinds of things, but just the time and energy and everything to do that is huge for these companies. So last year, this research project got brought up again that we did with the college, and last year Kutera Seafood in Vancouver decided to do a full year study, and we were able to eliminate their off flavor completely using our bacteria that we were using for, essentially the same bacteria that we were using for lake and pond treatment. So all of a sudden, we had an article published in Aquaculture magazine, and all of a sudden, you know, Aqua Bounty in Indiana, as well as Grieg Seafood in BC, have taken this on. And, you know, this is something that, when we talk about agriculture and how everything's growing for us that way, this might be something that grows even faster for us. Just, it's a small community as well, so. I just got the 5-minute sign, which is actually perfect. It's actually all I have. As you can tell, like, we're very, very passionate about what we're doing, and the potential of where this could go is huge. You know, we believe that it's going to be done properly through more and more research. The potential of where it could go for farmers, and not just farmers, but overall food production, is substantial. I do want to quickly say before I get off the stage that we love visitors. We love people. We kind of have this community now of people who talk to each other. Yeah, we love visitors. So if you probably don't have a reason to come out to Raymond, but if you're in the area, stop by. We'll show you some lab stuff. We'll show you how we're growing the bacteria. You get to meet our team and sit down, have coffee. They only have Subway and Dairy Queen there, so we'll bring some of that in and we can visit for a while. But thank you so much for listening to my story. I don't know if I have a couple minutes for questions, but there's got to be some out there.
Thank you, Jason. I really appreciate it.
Josh.
With this. Are there any questions for Jason?
Josh.
Josh.
That's okay. Sorry. You deal with a lot of names, and that's okay.
Are there any questions for Josh?
So when we think about broadacre crops, do you think you would reach a saturation period after 2, 3, 4, 10 years of application that you probably stop seeing an added advantage by applying more product?
I think that's likely, for sure. And even back to when we were doing research on our pond and lake applications, seemed to get to a point where we had a nice balance, and we did require some more applications, but it wasn't as frequent or as high of dosages. We haven't seen that yet. Again, you know, everyone's using the product differently, and of course there's this big controversy right now with the federal government and the 30% emission reduction and things like that. So not only that, but then just fertilizer prices as well. A lot of guys are using this as a way to maybe cut back, you know, 10, 15%. I have a potato grower who's done it 20 to 30% in Purple Springs. So, I think it's just, the last thing I want is someone just to throw this into a program and hope that you're going to see benefit. I think it depends how you use it. I think it depends on your soil. Like, for example, alkali soils, we know that there's a lot of P bound up in those soils. We find that in year one, especially on alkali patches, this product works fantastic because it's releasing that phosphorus to the plant. So it really depends on climate, soil types, what's been done historically on that land for 50, 60 years. But yeah, absolutely. I think we could get to a point where, yeah, it probably doesn't require, but that's a good thing. That means there's a lot of available nutrients in the soil. That means you can cut back on a lot of different things at that point. So it's a good question.